Hi everyone, this is group number 2. Today we are going to give the presentation about Ford Motor Company's supply chain strategy. My name is Wang Shaonan and I will start with the outline of our case and explain the general issues of Ford Company. This is our outline. We will go over these sections: general issue, main stakeholders, theory and concept, alternatives and evaluation criteria, best solutions and implementation plan, evaluation and review, and current status and update. Let's start from the section A, general issues. Some facts about Ford. The Ford Motor Company is an American multinational automaker based in Dearborn, Michigan. It was founded by Henry Ford in 1903. Ford is the second largest U.S.-based automaker. Ford employs more than 166,000 workers worldwide. Ford generated an estimated $1.4 billion in pre-tax profit in the first quarter of 2014. Some issues about Ford. They are facing the growing competition and also the way to attract suppliers from new high-tech industry. Change their traditional model to a new technical model. Pricing organizations and also the new supply chain strategy.
Hi class, I am Danielle Chavez and I will be reviewing Section B, Main Stakeholders. I have divided the main stakeholders into two categories, external, shown in green, and internal, which is shown in blue. External stakeholders include the lower level suppliers, our competitors, dealerships, and of course our customers. Internal stakeholders include the company's board members, all of the employees, the Tier 1 suppliers, the executive management team, and surely the shareholders. Now I'm going to review Section C, Theories and Concepts. I decided to use the IT impact map, a concept we learned back in Chapter 2, to demonstrate how Ford's plans and potential are going to leave them with a superior supply chain business model. This will help demonstrate the path Ford is preparing to take in order to minimize costs, improve on their value creation, and progress its current dynamics with suppliers. Ford previously had a supply network of several thousand strong, choosing suppliers solely on costs, but decided to change their mindset to include long-term relationships and yearly supplier price reductions. Ford's 2000 initiative created the Ford Production System, hoping to move the company from push to pull through synchronous material flow. Another key part was the order to deliver project that reduced a finished good getting to the customer by 15 days. The implementation of virtual integration allowed Ford to begin to transform from a traditional approach to a direct approach, modeled after Dell. And that is the theory and concept slide. Thank you. I will now hand it over to my next group member.
Hello, my name is Chasen Schmidt, and I will be discussing Part D for Group 2, Symptoms and Problems. So as previously mentioned, in the latter half of the 1990s, Ford began a major push to further develop their IT systems. The transition was overall successful, however there were some issues during the transition period. For example, incremental IT-enabled cost savings were not as easy to achieve as Ford originally had anticipated. This was largely due to the fact that some of the businesses that Ford had relied upon for materials and resources and whom they had partnered with cannot match the level of IT systems that Ford was upgrading to. Some Tier 1 partners had fairly well developed systems, while others did not due to the inability to properly invest in the IT technology systems. This proved to be problematic for Ford because as their IT systems developed, previous businesses and relationships they had done business with could not match Ford's level of IT sophistication and hurt their business in turn. Furthermore, companies that could afford, to match Ford's IT systems or to be able to work with Ford's IT systems some of them didn't have a proper IT maturity, which is the lack of understanding of technology. And this proved problematic for Ford in the beginning. But as we've seen time go on, Ford's been working with more IT smart, IT mature companies, or companies that were not originally IT mature were kind of forced to do so to retain their business with Ford. And this concludes Part D, and I would like to turn it over to my associate for Part E. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Pat Person, and I'm going to talk about the evaluation of the alternatives that Ford Motor Company has. Right now, one of the options is to do nothing. The Ford 2000 initiative is working pretty well. They're a profitable company. The shareholders are pretty happy right now. Also, their push model is proven and effective. It's a traditional model. It's been working. So if it ain't broke, why fix it? Also, they also have a good relationship with the suppliers already. They've made changes because of the Ford initiative, and they have reduced suppliers. So things are working pretty well. Next, and also it's predictable with less risk right now. So those are some of the pros. The cons, well, the competitors may just jump on the bandwagon and try a virtual strategy. Ford Motor Company, I believe, was in rank 4 as of the writing of this story. So they were well behind the Japanese, and allowing them to have any more competitive advantage may not be that good. And also, there's always room for improvement. So the opportunities to improve their supply chain may exist, and they shouldn't ignore that. So the kind of middle of the road idea is to kind of adopt a partial virtual strategy. But let's talk about some of the pros and cons. Well, some of the pros, they'll bypass the dealer channel completely, so that they will actually gain some profit and increase their margin, because there wouldn't be dealers. They'd go direct basically to the customer. With that, they can capture valuable information and data about their customer, learn more about them, and and increase that relationship. And then as far as suppliers, the tier 1 suppliers are already committed to Ford, and they are plugged into their system, so that would actually increase efficiency if everything was automated using advances in IT. And also, they would reduce their holding costs, and there wouldn't be much inventory. So those are the pros. The cons, well, wow, the current laws right now in most states say that you cannot sell directly to the customer. That's actually something that Tesla Motor Company is going through right now. Several states they've sued because of that fact, that they cannot sell directly to the customer. So Ford would have some major problems if they tried to move forward with that, facing lawsuits from dealerships, maybe even the union. I don't know. The other thing is, the IT part of it. The second and third tier suppliers, don't have the resources, the money to keep up. As things continuously get better, new advances, innovations, they just simply won't be able to do that. The other thing is that we're talking about an automobile, so it's super complex. There's thousands of parts, a lot more than the computer. So not sure that the virtual model would work as far as the automobile industry, because of the fact that of the complexity. Well, the last option would be to just go full forward and say, hey, we're going to do the virtual integration strategy. And some of the pros, obviously, it's going to be customer focused, exactly what Dell is. So with that, the customers, they should be able to build some loyalty with the customers, and of course they'll be satisfied because they'll be getting the cars, ordered just the way they want it, which is awesome. Also, they will reduce the number of suppliers to a handful, which will still, as we already talked about, could be a little tricky. The other pro is the pool strategy. It reduces waste and also reduces costs It's going to be market driven. So whatever the customer wants, they're going to get, and also it's going to reduce the OTD time, the order to delivery time, because of the efficiencies of these virtual integration. So that's some of the pros. Now the cons, well, it's going to be some big money in order to invest in this IT. It's going to be mind-boggling actually, and it's going to be expensive and risky. Do you really want to upset the traditional way of doing things and totally have to retool things, and everyone's going to have to learn, the suppliers, the customers, everyone. Also, it's going to be complex. There's going to be a lot of data being exchanged. Can they operate in this industry the way Dell has with computers? It remains to be seen. And like I said, it could be technically difficult for the automobile industry. And lastly, resistance from suppliers who may not want to make that investment in order to keep up with Ford. And also the whole idea with perhaps eliminating dealerships and going directly to the consumer is going to be a giant headache. Will Ford be able to overcome the lawsuits, or maybe even be able to change the laws? It's interesting to see what Tesla's going to do, because that's exactly what they're going through, and Tesla's probably a pretty good example of what's going on now and how a company is trying to integrate this virtual strategy. So that's it for me, and the next section is coming up. Thanks.
Hello, this is Chase again, and I will be discussing Part F for Group 2, Solution and Implementation Plan. So ultimately what Ford found best was to incorporate virtual integration. This required changes in fundamental operations, and some of the changes framed as a shift from push to pull. How Ford kind of got the ball rolling is they created the Ford 2000 Initiative. The Ford 2000 Initiative produced major corporation-wide reengineering projects. Some of these, for example, were the Ford Production Systems, which included the Synchronous Material Flow and Order-to-Delivery System. The Ford Production System, or FPS, is an integrated system aimed at making Ford manufacturing operations leaner, more responsive, and more efficient. This was kind of modeled after Toyota. Ford kind of mimicked them a little bit. The FPS drew on internal and external expertise worldwide, and it was more of a pull-based system similar to that of Dell, and it incorporated synchronous material flow. And what synchronous material flow is, or SMF, Ford defined it as a process or system that produces a continuous flow of material and products driven by a fixed, sequenced, and leveled vehicle schedule, utilizing flexibility and lean manufacturing concepts. So what SMF included primarily was software that ensured vehicles were assembled in order sequence. Also, it helped with the communication between suppliers and Ford to give days notice, advance notice on how much and of what kind of materials Ford will need and when. And another one is order to delivery, or OTD. It was created to be a lean, flexible, and predictable process that harmonized the efforts of all of Ford's components to enable it to provide consumers with the right products in the right place at the right time. Some aspects of OTD was ongoing forecasting of the customer demand dealers. Before OTD, Ford never officially involved the dealerships themselves in forecasting for the demand. And also, it was a minimum of 15 days of vehicles in each plant's assembly line to increase manufacturing stability, so there'd be no shortages. There's also regional mixing centers that optimize schedules and deliveries of finished vehicles via rail transportation. And Ford also incorporated an amendment process that allowed vehicles to be slightly altered to meet a consumer-specific demand. And now I'd like to turn over to my next peer for Part G. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ren Yue, and I will continue to present the case, revenue, and the current situation of Ford Motor. In this case, we realize a very famous motor brand, Ford Motor Company. It was the second largest industrial corporation in the world, with a revenue of more than 144 billion and about 370,000 employees. Along with the development of the film, Ford's new global approach required that technology be employed to overcome the constraints usually imposed by geography on information flow. In terms of Ford 2000 unfolded, the Internet revolution unfolded in parallel, creating new possibilities for re-engineering process within and between enterprises. Then, Ford teams with Chrysler and General Motors to work on the automotive's network exchange, which means ANX. At the beginning in the early 1990s, Ford had begun to actively try to decrease the number of suppliers the company dealt with directly. Thus, the IT maturity decreased rapidly in lower tiers of supply chain. FPS was an integrated system aimed to making Ford's manufacturing operation leaner, more responsive, and more efficient. It involved a multi-year project that drew on internal and external expertise worldwide. Finally, as for the OTD project, it aimed to reduce to 50 days the time from a customer's order to deliver of the finished product, a significant reduction versus the present situation. The last part is about the current status of Ford Motor. It surpassed the 200 million maker for US vehicle sales, making it the best-selling brand in America, and the individual yield of the film increased to 3.2%, which is higher than the average 2.2% among the SP5 index. In terms of the updated information, since 2005, Ford has been taking steps to rationalize and streamline our supply base through a strategic supplier strategy called the Aligned Business Framework, means ABF. The strategy is designed to create a sustainable business model to increase mutual profitability, improve quality, and drive innovation. What this means in practice is that we are working more closely and collaboratively with a smaller number of global strategic suppliers. Ford has approved a total of 102 ABF suppliers, 12 of which are owned by minorities or women. Ford and our strategic production supplier work together at the corporate level to align and enhance approach to a range of sustainability issues. All developmental work with ABF companies is extended to the supply chain below Tier 1. In addition, in 2012, they made cash contributions to our funded pensions plan of $3.5 billion globally. In 2013, cash contributions to funded plans are expected to be about $5 billion globally, including discretionary contributions to our US plan of about $3.5 billion. So that is what we have about the Ford Motor case. In a word, our group try our best to realize the case and analyze it from various aspects to have a better understanding. Thank you for your watching.